That had to be the most slow and buffery intro I think I've ever done on this channel. I don't know how it played on your end, but on my end, oh my gosh, I'm sounding very, very Yoruba. On my end, on my end, it was horrible. How you doing, guys? This is totally impromptu. Gave absolutely no warning to this live stream, so I don't know how fast this audience is going to fill up, or if it's going to fill up at all. But I thought I'd just do a quick live stream before I have something to do in about an hour. So this isn't going to be a long one. But I just wanted to touch on this topic and just to get something on this channel, because it's been a little while since I posted to the King Mono show. And I wanted you all to know that I haven't forgotten about this channel. I've just been, all my attention has been focused on the launch of the TKM Members Academy and just making sure that's up and running and making sure that everybody's okie dokie with that today. Well, with that, as it kind of like launches, we're nowhere near our target in terms of membership. If you do want to join, you're welcome to join. We'd love to have you there. Joy here, who is in the chat, is a member. Shout out to 4DV and Khalid, who are also here. How you guys all doing? I hope everyone is very, very well. I am very blessed to be here. So without much further ado, yeah, the cope is real, Kieran. Without much further ado, I thought I'd just dive straight into this video. It did pique my interest for a number of reasons. So the actress who's being interviewed in this new kind of like round of furor that has kicked off in the UK, because the UK are the most closeted R words and the most sensitive. They hate being criticized. They, unlike America, who kind of to all extents and purposes wear their R word on their sleeve and they're quite proud of it, what you'll find in the UK is that we have this denial that it exists, because they're not like stupid like Chud the Builders and Nick Fuentes. They'll do all of the things and have all of the same views and be as destructive to the life of Black people around them, but they won't use the N word. They won't do things that will call them, you know, in which you'll be able to accuse them or call them outright, you know, and say you're, you know. So they're very clever in the ways in which they administer their R word. They like to support it with a scientific R word, and yeah, you know, they're just very, very quite difficult people to get along with. You know, you got Piers Morgan, who is one of, I would say, is quite high up there in terms of the people I rank as being very internally and systematically an R word person. However, he'll on his show get someone who's, you know, American and dumb about it, and then call them an R word and say, you're despicable, you're reprehensible, I'm nothing like you. And it's like, you're the same. Yeah, you're exactly the same as her, and you have exactly the same views. You just don't, the you know, UK has this thing about taste. You know, they don't do things, they not in public anyway. They don't do things that are publicly distasteful. It doesn't mean it doesn't, it exists very much so. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that too much, because we're going to cover a lot of that probably in this video. So there's an actress called Jamila Jamil, who's an Asian Indian actress, and I actually quite like her because one of my favorite shows kind of post lockdown was a show called The Good Place. I'm not gonna lie, yeah, and a lot of you are gonna call me weird now. I have my little weird things that I watch. I think I've watched The Good Place now. I think I'm watching it at the moment, and I think this might be the 5th time round that I've watched it. I don't know why. It's just such easy watching. It's really, really witty. It's very funny. It's very lighthearted. It's very stupid, and I just enjoy it. I can't lie. She's one of the, you know, the main actresses or main actors, I should say, in the show, and she does a really good performance. So I quite like Jamila Jamil. She's kind of won some affection from me because of her performance in that show, which I quite liked. And she's under fire at the moment because she dared to criticize Queen and Country. I'm supposed to say King and Country now, but I refuse to say that. But she dared to criticize the perfect you know, the perfect unsullied, you know, no wrongdoing, ambivalent benevolent empire called the British Empire, which caused no harm to anybody. Everybody was absolutely appreciative of Britain's input in their nations. You know, they went around multiplying wealth and life for all. That's what British people believe. That's how biased and one-sided the recording and retelling of British history is becoming in the UK. And it all starts with not being able to criticize the military, which they then extend to not being able to criticize the Queen, which they then extend to not being able to criticize the Empire, which they then extend to not being able to criticize the history of the Empire. So all three of those steps have been successful. So now that fourth step, the history of the Empire, is where we are at the moment. And then obviously the fifth step will be the Britain once again tries to reenact its glory days of being an empire, since they have no critique and no reason to have any shame for any of the awful things they did. They'll just go out and try and do them again. So that's where it looks like we're heading to. Without further ado, that's funny. Joy said we all have a show that no one else watches that we watch. Although no one else knows we watch them. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Well, now everyone knows that I watch it, and you guys would never have known had her name not come up. So there you go. Let's get started anyway on this little reaction. It says it's called Right Wingers Furious with Jamil's British Empire comments. How dare you say anything bad about the British Empire? Let's get into this.
Actor Jamila Jamil has caused a storm, especially among the right wing, with her comments about British people. Criticizing the British Empire on yesterday's podcast, she said this.
So lucky to have been a part of that show. It was so well written. And Megan Amram as well is one of the lead writers on that show, who just wrote the shit out of Tahani. And so like together.
So she's actually talking about The Good Place here. So, you know, I'm all right with that. Shout out to Kieran. Appreciate the $5. He said here, I've come to believe that the only thing they love more than being racist is pretending they're not racist. You can't be good and racist. Absolutely. You know, they have to be in denial about their racism. And I actually came to another bit of a realization about a lot of these far-right racists today as well, just kind of like reviewing some of my previous content, etc., etc. And that is that in addition to that, I've also found that their racism isn't limited to them just having their way. And this is gonna sound controversial, but I'm convinced more and more that their racism is linked to specifically Black misery. And I know that sounds really, you know, really kind of like dystopian and really dramatic, but there's so many scenarios that I can think of where they could have had their way, or where they've had their way and they've not been able to celebrate it because they want to have their way, but they also want simultaneously for Black people to be miserable. You know, a perfect example is this entire storm that we find ourselves into in regards to the Odyssey. They are so concentrated on denigrating, pulling down, totally, you know, really like just completely like, I can't think of a better phrase than pulling down, but just kind of completely debasing and dehumanizing Lupita Nyong'o and Black beauty as a standard, that they weren't able to celebrate the fact that they've just created another whitewashed piece of cinema that celebrates conservative values and put white people in all of the important roles. The representation of a single Black female was able to ruin that entire experience for them. Do you understand what I mean? That's a wild. There's a real weird pathology going on there. But anyway, let's carry on.
We all crafted her, but I just had to make her more of a bitch. They wanted her to be very sweet because Americans think British people are so sweet, which is crazy because British people are truly the most evil people in history. Like they are Thanos. Britain.
Now, not even controversial. I love the fact that said we're Thanos. And that's just, there's not even anything controversial there. America, which has obviously overtaken in the last 200 years, being the most evil nation on the planet by a long shot, is a British colony. Yeah, you're not gonna outdo daddy. Yeah. Is a British colony. Australia, which has committed the most, Australia's genocide, yeah, in Oceania, is one of the most undocumented but expansive, and I think possibly the worst genocide in history. I think it's the worst one in history. But do you know how they get away with it? They just don't talk about it. It's like it's just Operation Legacy all over again. They've unalived, like they've, people think of Australia and they think of a single ethnic group, the Aborigines who all speak. Do you know Australia was rife with ethnic groups when the British arrived? Okay, lots of different indigenous, oceanic people, black oceanic people, lots of different indigenous ethnic groups speaking different languages. Do you know how many extinction events they created? Because I call it an extinction event when you wipe out an entire ethnic group. They created multiple extinction events in Australasia without any, they didn't even miss a beat. They just wiped people out and no one talks about it. The British are Thanos, perfectly stated. Joy has mentioned the Tasmanian indigenous people. I mean, we only know their name because they wiped them out in entirety. That's the only reason we know their name. There's a lot of people they wiped out. We don't even know what they were called. So many groups. They just like wild, crazy people. And here's another interesting fact. This is for those of you who are, and I know many of you are a bit of, history buffs. Do you know, everyone talks about the fact that the UK sent over its convicts, yeah, to Australia. Okay. And no one ever asked the question, what do you mean? What was the process here? Did they send them over as prisoners, this, that, and the other? No, they didn't send them over as prisoners. Okay. They were expanding. Okay. And these were the easiest people to get out and say, hey, here's a new land. But if you want it, if you want to keep it, you're going to have to claim it. So if you want your freedom and you want your slice of life, it's over there, and you're going to have to work for it, essentially. And they did the same thing in the Americas as well. So everyone's okay with the fact that Australians are the descendants of convicts, but so are white Americans. There's so much to our history that's so interesting. Let me carry on.
Thanos,
go to a museum, guys.
Yeah, they owe 43 trillion to India.
Maybe go to Chilton Firehouse and leave there and be like, wait, was that girl mean to me? Like, everyone's mean.
But we colonized the world.
Just the artifacts in the museum.
Oh, goodness me. This show. Sorry. I don't mean to be judgmental, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not that guy, but I am. I didn't realize this. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get through this and be totally honest with you. Let's see. I'm trying. Let's see. I find it really hard. Let me not say anymore.
Museums, I'm like, why is that not in Africa?
Yeah, so the idea that she would be this sweet, saccharine woman, and so Mike Scher was kind of like, we disagreed. We sort of butted heads a little bit about how to play her.
It shouldn't be controversial to say how evil the British Empire.
So, by the way, that was it. Yeah, in terms of her comments, that was it. I know you guys were waiting for some big kind of really insulting. She just said they're really evil. They owe this much to India. And by the way, Indians more recently, because of the reluctance to teach British colonial and empirical history correctly, Indians who are very astute people when it comes to these matters have been definitely kind of oppression maxing, so to speak. And they've claimed, they are in the process of, and we have to be quite mindful of this, claiming a lot of oppression that was done to the Africans. So all of a sudden, the entirety, growing up, it was acknowledged that the crown jewels were taken from Africa. And I think it's gone from one jewel now. They said the diamonds or something came from India. They're now saying the entirety of the crown jewels came from India. And that's just not true. Okay, the crown jewels came from Africa. Not only that, I think the entire crown came from Africa. The crown of England is an African design. Okay, hey, we're gonna be doing some Operation Legacy today, guys. You have to understand that the crown of England is an African design. There's African heritage and African provenance in the way the crown of England is designed. It's not a UK thing. So the entire crown was, I'm going to use the word possibly, lifted from Africa, from West Africa specifically. I believe it to be a Guinean crown, but we'll go on to that in the future. But the point being, Indians have been, you know, I would say, I'm not going to say inflating, but they've certainly been kind of like bearing the brunt of a majority of the British Empire's exploits at the expense, I would say, of the Caribbean and Africa, who obviously were in my view, were the worst hit by British expansionism. I think, you know, Africa and the Caribbean were the worst hit. We know how those populations were treated, and we know how the natural resources were exploited in the. Now, this is not to kind of like go do the oppression Olympics, because Indians, I want them to get their get back. I'm not gonna say I want them, I don't really care, but if they get their get back, it's all good. I'm not gonna hate on that. But I'm just saying, as a population, just to be mindful that if we're going to nod along to the Indian claim, not to forget the African claim. And also, if you hear them kind of like overstepping the bounds in terms of, you know, remember that, you know, a lot of the stuff, material wealth that came from Africa is now being claimed to have come from India. So just be mindful of that, okay?
Empire was. We killed 100 million Indians between 1880 and 1920, more than the Soviet Union, North Korea, and China under Mao combined.
And to be clear, a lot of the Indians that were killed, and I'm not undermining it, but a lot of that was kind of like calculations done by, you know, obviously food oppression, you know, drought as a result of British greed. Not direct, we are trying to unalive 100 million people. It was more, we're going to mismanage the way we're treating their entire landmass economy. We're going to over appropriate things that don't belong to us, and as a result, there was widespread unalivings in India. And I'm not going to undermine any of that. And I want Indians to get their get back. But we also have to draw a line of differentiation between that and the deliberate unaliving and the deliberate enslavement. Just saying that, okay?
Yet this has upset the right wing because everything seems to upset them.
Yeah, they're lying out of, whether it's out of ignorance or willful blindness.
Now this guy was quite funny. What's his name? Does it have his name? He's on Talk. He's on Talk, which is Piers Morgan's channel. So Piers Morgan always likes to invite far right people, agree with them, and then turn around and say he's not racist. But the interesting about this guy looks Indian. So it's funny how they're always able to find a willing stooge. Raccoons exist not only in our communities, guys. Let's see what this moron has to say.
So whether they're just being disingenuous, you know, you can be generous on that front. Imagine saying that the British people are the most evil in history.
Yeah, I can imagine saying it because it's probably true, but let's hear what he has to say in response.
What is she saying? That we're worse than Nazi Germany in the extermination of Jews on the...
Yes, definitely. Like that one's not even close. We literally just saw an article said they unalived 100 million in India. We know that the 6 million figure that they're given to, you know, for that particular community who shall not be named, we know that already has been inflated. But also that was a act concentrated over 4 years. Okay, Britain went around on extermination campaigns right across the new world. Okay, extermination campaigns unaliving whole ethnic groups. Germany didn't even manage to get rid of one ethnic group. Britain has literally scores, if not hundreds, on their hands. So not a comparison anymore.
Sexuals, the disabled, gypsies, Poles and Slav and others.
Okay, listing who was included in the Nazi unaliving campaigns doesn't extend the number and doesn't make it any more heinous than what the British did. So
worse than Stalinist Russia with millions dying there.
yes, worse than Stalin. Not once again, not even close. Okay, not even close. And once again, was the intention in Stalinist Russia to unalive lots and lots of people like it was with the British? No, it wasn't. So you're missing there again.
Not to mention the Holodomor in Ukraine, worse than Chairman Mao in China.
The whole Mao, I'm not going to go into that, but we all know that's an inflated cope for the British and Europeans to have a ethnicity outside of Europe that has done worse things, and they consistently pick these, you know, the communist enemy. You know, the communist enemy who's resulted in the deaths of, a lot of time they've just drummed these numbers up. You know, they just created and cooked up these numbers themselves. You know, it's, oh yeah, I'll just you know, create these numbers. They always do that when they want to create an enemy, particularly if that enemy exists in the Orient, you know, the East. You know, they don't have to do any verification. They can just, one of the reasons I said is, I remember this was because if you back in when I was teaching, this is going back years now, a couple of decades, we had a part of the course was to teach about bias. Okay, and the whole crux of the course was you can't trust everything you see on the internet. There are some sources that you should trust and some sources that you shouldn't trust, and obviously the sources that you trust are the mainstream sources. The sources that you don't trust are the independent kind of like little websites, etc. So that was the whole crux of this Key Stage 3 course that we taught as a part of the ICT. The subject was called ICT back then. And it's funny because one part was they had to Google who was the most evil person in history. And inevitably, it would always bring up Mao at the top. Hitler was like down at 5th or something. So I had all of these obscure people. Hitler was down at 5th. And obviously, there was no British people in that list of most evil people in history. And it's like, this is just, I remember thinking back then, this is just such BS. This is such BS. It's like they have no acknowledgement of the fact that anyone in modern Western Europe, obviously other than the Germans, who they all agree were heinous, has ever done anything wrong historically, ever. And that's how they do it, you know. I think I'm trying to think, did Leopold even make Leopold might have made the list somewhere down the line. They've agreed to throw Leopold under the bus somewhat, but they won't call him worse than HH, you know, AH, sorry.
Worse than the Belgians in the Congo, or indeed, of course, the non-European empires that committed.
Oh, now he wants to talk about the Belgians and Leopold. I told you they throw him under the bus when it's convenient. Oh, they'll kill the Belgians. Well, can we talk about the Kenyans? Yeah, can we talk about the Mau Mau? Can we talk about all of the different African groups who we don't even know how many unalived in Africa, because it was so heinous that you burnt the evidence because you thought it was going to embarrass the Queen. Those are your own words. You burnt the evidence of the crimes you committed on the African continent because they were so heinous that you knew it was going to bring disrepute to the crown. Now, I think it's more than that. But even taking the lie which you have admitted to, or at least the lie that you've propagated to say we didn't want anything that was going to bring embarrassment to the Queen, that is enough. That is enough to know that what you did on the African continent was like gobsmackingly awful. Because we know about Leopold, okay? And the Belgian monarchy has survived that. We know about Mussolini, and the Italian government has survived that, and his genocide in Libya, and the Italian government has survived that. So, you know, the various massive mass unalivings that have taken place on the African continent has not really affected any of those, you know, standing monarchs, governments to any like huge, you know, to any huge extent. And yet you had to burn the evidence of what you did in Africa. It was so bad. Just think about that for a moment. That's pretty deep. Let me give a shout out to Dame Dash. That's my guy. He says here, I am thinking I was going to have a productive Sunday, but now King has me going down a rabbit hole about the crown jewels. Please do. I'm digging out of the Ramesses Rome connection. Oh, wicked! You're still digging out of that? Yeah. Great work, bro. Oh, there's more to come there. And shout out. Can I just thank you for the $10? I'm gonna read off the back of that generous donation you just sent. I'm going to read this statement from Joy, because this is the whole truth. Listen to what she says here. She says, TKM member lives are even better than these YouTube lives. Everyone participates in the discussion and gets to ask questions, and they are, guys. So if you've been pondering joining the TKM Members Academy, if you enjoy the live streams, you'll be a part of an interactive discussion, and we do them at very least once a week. Twice a week if I'm doing lectures in between. So last couple of weeks it's been twice a week. When we first started, we had actually quite a few every week. So, and they're very, very, I would say, educational, edifying, and everyone's involved. So if you like that kind of thing, the Members Academy is there for you to join. So shout out to, thank you, Joy, for leaving that comment, and shout out to Dame Dash for that $10 donation. This day obviously might also become a little bit less productive for you, because I've got a live call with the TKM Members Academy at 7 p.m. So it's 45 minutes, so I can't do this live stream for much longer. I'll go on for probably another 40 minutes, just try and get to the end of this video. But I might do another live stream in it. I might do a live stream in the evening on the main King's Monologue channel as well. So like, if you're about, you might not get nothing done today. You know, if you join the Members Academy, you definitely won't get nothing done today. But anyway, let me carry on.
Cannibalism, human sacrifice, the Mughal Empire in India.
Wait. Let's go back to see what he's rambling on over here. So Belgians in the Congo.
Empires that committed cannibalism, human sacrifice.
Wait. These people. Sorry, let's bring this back. So see, the thing that happened there is he realized he was listing a bunch or far too many European empires there, and he realized that this doesn't sound good for my far right grift, so he had to flip it back around again. So listen up.
Mao in China, worse than the Belgians in the Congo, or indeed, of course, the non-European empires that committed cannibalism, human sacrifice, the Mughal Empire in India.
The non-European empires that committed cannibalism, human sacrifice. Mate, first of all, cannibalism, there's no great evidence of cannibalism done in Germany. So you need to stop and rewind that whole spiel, because they love to come with this, oh, cannibalism, inbreeding. That's all European behavior. Documented fact. Mass cannibalism graves found in Germany, not seen anywhere else in the world, certainly not seen in Africa. So he's talking about non-European empires. Which ones? Notice how he wasn't able to name them. It's just these kind of like negative colonial and imperial tropes that they like to lean on, and they know that everyone's not going to argue with. Sorry, mate, that kind of barbarity that you're speaking about, that is European. That is almost exclusively European. Now, human sacrifice, that's global, okay? But human sacrifice attached to some kind of religiosity or ritual that has meaning, or human sacrifice when it's just kind of like we're just gonna unalive people and eat them, for instance, for cannibalism. Those are two measures. I'm not saying either is correct, both are wrong. You know, you could give the example of, you know, in pharaonic Kemet, where allegedly they used to bury the pharaoh with his living servants. That had to suck. All right. I don't know which dynasties this happened in or how often it happened, but that sucks. Yeah. I'm not gonna sit here trying to defend it and say that's cool. Like that sucks. Ain't no one to be buried alive. Yeah. I don't care if he's the king. I ain't trying to be buried alive with no damn king. Like, it's cool. You can put what you want in this tomb. I'm outside. Yeah, I'm trying to be in the sun. That's good. So yeah, I'm not making excuses, but you know, I'm sorry, I just found it funny how he thought he'd just gish gallop in a bunch of colonial tropes, you know, oh, human sacrifice, uncontrolled sex, uncontrolled sex, cannibalism, like, mate, you just don't just make stuff up so you can throw it in. Oh man.
Where millions of Hindus and Sikhs were killed by their Muslim overlords. And this goes...
That's still going on, brother. Let's respectfully. Yeah, that's not a past thing, is it? But anyway, carrying on. Like, we all know about the conflict that's taking place in Pakistan. That hasn't, Kashmir, that hasn't eased up, has it? You know?
is far wider than this cretinous woman.
Brendan O'Neill wrote an entire piece about her.
So I'm gonna have to say this comment as well, because this is a point that I didn't even talk about. Okay, the cannibalism of recent Europeans, yeah, they haven't stopped that behavior. Nat Turner cannibalized by white slave owners, not to mention the number of mummies that were cannibalized by Europeans in the belief that it was going to grant them some kind of special powers, special melanated powers. They thought by eating the melanated gods, they were going to gain some melanated powers. These people have been eating people, okay? Even the ones who are educated, yeah? Even the ones that were rich and powerful and educated continued this practice of cannibalism. So yeah, don't be gish galloping that onto our community, mate, respectfully. Let's carry on.
Her in The Spectator, but these two paragraphs were interesting. We are witnessing the revenge of the sensible. After years of top-down haughty groaning over Britain's history, its blood-stained flag and its horrible people, normies are starting to say, nah. That's what all the flag raising that's what all the flag raising was about last summer. It was the people striking back against the luxury self-loathing of their supposed betters. It was a working class rejection of the elite culture of shame. It really is a class divide. You know you're in a working class part of Britain when you see Union flags fluttering, and you know you've crossed back into hipster or leafy territory when the eyesore pride flag appears, or worse, the ghastly Palestine flag. Imagine hating on the colonialist British flag, even as you wave a flag under which more than 1,000 Jews were butchered not even 3 years ago.
More than 1,000 you-know-whos were butchered 3 years. First of all, yeah, cap. Yeah, I'm just going to say it out loud. You know it's not true. Cap on that BS. But even if it was true, you got to really talk about the flag of a nation being the sign of the flag. Isn't it funny how the you-know-whos align themselves with the far right? Now, this is, let me throw a quandary your way, guys, if you don't understand the alleged incompatibility. There's supposed to be an incompatibility between Nazism, yeah, and these people. They're supposed to be mortal enemies. Remember, they keep giving us that figure, 6 million, 6 million, yeah? These people killed 6 million of us. They're supposed to be diametrically opposed to anything that resembles Nazism. They're supposed to be like, whoa, we don't want that. We hate these people. They're vile. But isn't it funny how they consistently align with the values of the far right? Isn't it funny how Elon Musk was able to give not one, but two full-hearted Sikh Heils, and that entire nation was like, we like him. We like the cut of his jib. He seems like a sound guy. Kyrie Irving, mind you, tweeted a movie and he was brought before the council. You will apologize, you will bow, you will kiss the feet, you will be fired from your job, you will this, you will pay a fine, you will do this, that, and the other. Elon Musk goes, hell, yeah, flings it up there, yeah, and they're like, no, we like that guy. Something about him, he's just, we like him. He's got a swagger that we can't. He's got a swagger that we can't quite disagree with. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how they always align? They're talking about the Union Jack flying as a symbol of British pride, yeah? But if we see that ghastly Palestine flag, do you know what they did to us? The people who are hanging the Union Jack are the most likely to be NIZI sympathizers. 100%. Yeah, these are gonna be your National Front, yeah, your Britain First. These are all like NIZI sympathizers. 100%. They are 100% that. And these people seem to always want to be with them. Now, someone has to start, if you haven't, and I'm sure most of you have to start asking the question, why do these people seem to always meld together so good? Think about, in fact, recent controversy. Argentina is now in everyone's radar, which is great because Argentina's always been on my radar as a horrendous nation. Know what Argentina? Do you know what Argentina has in common with this discussion I have? Massive NIZI population, massive you-know-who-ish population. Why are they living together? Why are they so happy living together? And why are they doing the same thing that the NIZIs did in Germany, in Argentina to the black people? Should we go for another population? South Africa, massive NIZI population, massive you-know-who-ish population, apartheid. You know, you can do this in near enough every place where you have a massive NIZI, a massive you-know-who-ish population. They always seem to revert to the NIZI behavior. Why is that happening, guys? And it's more than, I agree with what you're saying there, Kieran, about they all, white people always stick together, but it's more than that. There's something peculiar. Do you not think there's something peculiar about the fact that they share surnames? Didn't that, this isn't me just being like, they share surnames, okay? All the people, with their made-up surnames, all the presidents of the little hat nation with their made-up surnames, yeah, that's not their real surnames. Their real surnames are exactly the same as the NIZIs. Like, oh, I'm Berg. Oh, I'm a Berg too. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? Why do they have the same surnames? Why do they have the... Anyway, I'm gonna keep it moving because I need you guys I'm hoping that the dime drops in some of you.
Brendan O'Neill managed to insert his attack on Palestine in there, whilst claiming that patriotism is a working class virtue. But this also speaks to a broader issue. O'Neill is correct that it's certainly harder to say these sort of comments Jamila made when it was a decade ago, but that is due to the fact that the debate has moved to the right. It doesn't mean that criticizing the empire is any less correct.
Yeah, it's like they're like, oh, she wouldn't, I'm probably saying about me right now because I'm talking way looser than I would have talked even 5 years ago. Yeah, but that's because it's now cool and okay for people to say the N-word and have no reprisals on all media platforms and not get shut down. Okay, guys. So everything has shifted so heavily to the right. They've gone like so gung-ho with their anti-everything, but obviously anti-blackness at the top has gone so gung-ho that, of course, people are going to be more outspoken on the other side to create some kind of a balance. They're like, oh, well, but and in fairness, to be honest with you, what she said wasn't that controversial. I think she would have said it 10 years ago and there would have been actually less controversy, because what has happened is that white males, as I showed in the latest video that I dropped in the King's Monologue, are so sensitive now. And I'm talking specifically about conservative alt-right white males. Not all of them. I'm sure a lot of them are not like this, but there's a massive white male sect who are just so flipping sensitive about everything. You can't do anything without upsetting them. Like everything, it's like they're so desperate for oppression. They're so desperate to feel like they have some power, that's pressing them down. It's like, no, you run everything. You run everything. You have all the money. You make all the decisions, and you do all the oppression. Okay, no one's oppressing you, so they have to create oppression out of things that aren't oppressive. Oh, I feel so oppressed by a woman getting a job, Oh, I feel so. Why do you feel oppressed by a woman to get a job? Oh, well, what if a white man had gone for that job and they didn't get the job? Oh, that means they've been cheated out of a job. Oh, it's so hard for me to get a job. Is it harder for you to get a job than it is a black person in your place at the moment? Oh, that's irrelevant. It's still harder than it used to be before. Shut the shut the that's what I feel like saying to these. Actually, that's what I probably would say if we were face to face.
Curtis, what do you make of this story? Because on one hand, she's not incorrect, but also I can kind of understand why people are offended by this, because
why why can you understand why people would be offended by her saying a blatant truth? The British Empire was horrendous. Okay, they were Thanos. She's an Indian. Okay, she's felt the direct well, maybe not direct impact, but she knows the history of 100 million of her people being unalived. Why would that cause anybody offense for her, making it her personal choice? That I actually think this is the worst empire. This is what they did. No, they attack the most stupid and asinine things because what they're trying to stop is any kind of critique. So they gaslight you when you make the most. This is such a light comment, and I hope she doesn't run it back or apologize for any of this.
is we are, as British people, probably centering ourselves in that conversation.
Why are you centering yourselves in a conversation if you didn't commit those acts? Because you're the first people to say on the other, when it's done and dusted, you're the first people to say, oh, we're not going to pay any reparations, we didn't do that, we don't want to have to pay, we don't want to have to pay for those crimes done by our ancestors, we didn't commit those crimes. So you find it really easy to separate yourself then. But then when someone criticizes what someone does, oh, I'm so offended, how could you say such a horrible thing about the British people? Oh, so you do feel connected to, which one is it? Can you pick a status? Can you pick an MO? Yeah, and stick to it? Are you able to do that?
Like to think we're not evil, but maybe we are. What do you make?
Maybe we are.
And she never said you were evil. She was just talking literally about the British Empire, and be quite frank, I'll answer your question. Yes, you are evil, as in like the current British government is also evil. But she wasn't even talking about that. She was talking about the British Empire being evil, which you'd have to be a brain dead or a very disingenuous person to disagree with. If you're going to turn around and act like the British Empire, like I said, is some kind of benevolent force, you are deluded.
Maybe we are. I'm going to respond to Brendan's comments before I talk about Jamila Jamil. What a fascinating article that was. There's so much to unpack here. So let's look at what he said about Palestine. Really incredible what he's saying there, because he's trying to push this idea that there is a hypocritical nature to being anti-imperialist and criticizing the British Empire, but supporting Palestine. First of all, Palestine isn't even a state, and they're facing not just a genocide, but those that are committing the genocide, Israel, are a settler colonial state. And
I not just this point in particular, but I touch on the fact that this is what they do. They're so good at projecting the oppression that they're inflicted upon others. So they'll literally be unaliving you, and then they'll be shouting, I'm being unalived, I'm being unalived. That's literally what the state of the little hat people are doing. Okay, they're literally just committing the worst genocide and then say, oh, October 7th was the most heinous thing that ever happened in history. Whereas the Palestinian people experience on October 7th every day. Okay, if it even happened the way you said it, which I don't believe it did, but they experience that literally every day. They have a group of settlers that came from somewhere in Europe, decided they're going to take their land, and have been systematically erasing them day after day after day after day. That is a reality. That is the truth. That is an unavoidable, undisputable reality. And they shout the most about being oppressed. And this is literally what they do. As they're committing the most heinous crime against you, they act like they are the victims of the very crime they're committing. It is the most, you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to respond to it. You don't know how to navigate their behavior, because it's just so like, how do I deal with you? You're not human. You're an impossible entity to have any kind of, you can't discuss with you. We can't negotiate with you. There's no diplomatic, capability. There's no way that we're going to advance this conversation because you're so evil and so deluded about how evil you are. It's just, it's very tiring.
So supporting Palestine is the anti-colonial position. So it's not hypocritical.
And no one thinks it is. But they say things, and because they got control over the media, they get to say it. So they get to say, oh, being anti-imperialist is supporting the little hats. It's like, no, it isn't. You're clearly the imperial power. That's not even like, if I was to choose all of the nations in the world right now and say which one is acting most like an imperial power, I think 9 out of 10 people would say you. But you're going to turn around and say, well, if you support them, that means you support imperialism. We are anti-imperialism, as you're literally conducting imperialism. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, they're literally conducting an imperial exercise, and then claiming that support of them is supporting anti-imperialism. sorry.
He's trying to say that thousands of Jews were murdered just 3 years ago under the Palestinian flag. We don't need to go into this again. We know the history of Israel Palestine. We know that October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum, so I don't need to go through that again. But crazy how we had to sort of insert that in there. What I find most interesting from Brendan O'Neill, and it's not just him, lots of people in the legacy media do this, is quite patronizing to the working class, because he's trying to say that elitism and anti-elitism is based on culture, on your social views and vibes. No, what determines someone as working class is your relationship to production. It's how much power you have, right? It's nothing to do with the fact that, oh, I'm a bit reactionary in my social issues, or that I love the flag. And yet Brendan O'Neill's trying to say, well, that is why last summer we had loads of people raise their flags, because it was a rejection of elitist mindset. That's an insane thing to say, because actually patriotism and subservience to the state is the most elitist thing you can do. I mean, before...
He raises a good point here. Raises a very good point. Now, I just want to give him a bit of time to land on that, but it's absolutely true. Patriotism literally is the height of elitism. I remember touching on this, when it comes to Andrew Tate, who I've got a video coming on that I'm going to be doing soon, because obviously he's been arrested. He's going to be extradited to the UK, God willing, and hopefully thrown in prison for a very long time, because he's a vile human being. So I would apologize to all of the Andrew Tate followers in my audience, but if I've got any, then God help you, because why would you follow such a disgusting and reprehensible human being as Andrew Tate? He's getting everything that he is owed. But I remember, one of my big, obviously, criticisms amongst thousands of others is the fact that he markets himself, just like the you-know-who's do, as this anti-imperial, we're against the matrix, we're going to break out, I'm going to break you free from the elite, this, that, and the other. And then in the same breath, he's like, oh, Trump kidnapped Maduro. This is great. Yeah, you should kidnap all of the South American leaders and let's get more wars. And I want to see you bomb not just Iran, but all of the surrounding nations. What? Like, so I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I thought you were against the matrix. I thought you were against imperialism. These people just talk. Okay, they just talk. They talk out of one side of the face, act like they're bringing some kind of freedom, but when it comes down to it, they are just promoting imperialism. If you hang your flag, your British flag, and you're like, God save the Queen and country and get those immigrants out, you are supporting the elites. That's what you're doing. There's nothing, remotely anarchist about you. There's nothing remotely, you're not protesting, you're not trying to reduce the power of the elites. You are simply multiplying their power. You are literally a sheep of the elites at that point. So he raises a really good point there.
Capitalism, we lived under feudalism of kings and queens, and what was the role of the peasant class? It was to serve, bend the knee, and have complete loyalty to the king and queen, often under banner of the flag. So to say that actually being patriotic is, counter-revolutionary or revolutionary to the established order of elitist woke politics is absolutely insane, and it's completely backwards. Because of course, when we lived under feudalism, we tried to tell people that actually, you must serve the king, you must serve the British state, or it wasn't really a state back then, but the realm, okay? So there's nothing more elite than technically being a patriot to the British state. Now, of course...
And remember what the point that I raised earlier regarding this is that they put people on this kind of conveyor belt, and all of this started really re-galvanizing in terms of the amount of, impetus and momentum it has behind it. It started with back your troops in the UK, because what you'll find is that there was actually quite an extended period of time where the UK was becoming very anti-monarchist. It was becoming very anti-centralist. It was becoming where, you saw that the people didn't like these kind of like centralized powers. And when, without going into a long political history, when New Labour came into force, who were the first Labour government to really back the Queen and to utilize the manipulation of the media So this was Tony Blair's Labour. You guys will all be familiar with Tony Blair. When they came into power, he was obviously put into place by the you-know-whos and the elites. He was a selected leader of the elites. So when he became into power, one of the first things that he put into place, or at least his government put into place, was the idea of backing your troops, back the troops. So they didn't want to lead with, you know, back the Queen, because she still wasn't that popular. It starts off with back the troops. Everyone backs the troops. Yes, the troops. Doesn't matter what the troops are doing. The troops could be going out committing rapes and you know, mass unalivings, which they were, by the way, which they do regularly, which is one of the reasons why a lot of these people like to go to wars, because they, when they're out there, they have a whale of the time, you know, reliving the, you know, the deeds of their ancestors, their imperial ancestors, and never speaking about it. This goes, but you can see some of these things being exposed by, you know, the Snowden files, Assange files. You'll see a lot of these kind of like behaviors being kind of like uncovered. But that's an aside. The point being, you back your troops, and then after you back your troops, you back your queen, yeah. And after you back your queen, you back the system, and it's a kind of like it's a conveyor belt that they put you on, yeah. Until once again, as obviously, like I said, they'll want till they get to the point where they are now just conducting imperialism over again. Now, you know, all of they've reverted themselves back to a state where they're just happy for the elite class to do whatever they like.
Today, people have their different ideas of patriotism. I think people might criticize me for bringing up this term, progressive patriotism, but I would say, to me anyway, being patriotic is willing to criticize this country and when it does bad things. Not because I want to forever moan about Britain and the British Empire, because I want it to be better. Now, if we were to endlessly bend the knee to the British state and just being blindly patriotic, then this country's never going to improve. So we criticize it to make it better. So Brendan O'Neill was trying to basically say that Jamila Jamil actually has the elitist view because she criticized, you know, Britain.
And that's crazy for someone to turn around and say imperialism was bad and say, oh well, you're obviously an elite. Do you understand? Like, it's, you know, I'm not a religious person, but it just makes me think of the, you know, the biblical verses where it talks about what's bad will be called good and what's good will be called bad. But the whole idea of reverse speak is to do one thing and then, you know, to gaslight you, to accuse you of it, or to do one thing and to be doing the exact opposite has just become the normal, operation. It's just become the normal method of interaction now, where there's this constant accusation of things that they are literally actively doing, and they are projecting it onto everybody else, and it's just constant. It has to be tiring, you know. I mean, obviously, as a, you know, it's I don't know how they maintain this kind of behavior, to be totally honest with you.
Now let's talk about Jamila Jamil's comments. I was actually messaged from a GB News producer. They said, do you want to come on and talk about this? And I didn't.
By the way, GB News is like the UK's equivalent of what's that Ben Shapiro crappy channel? But that's what GB News is the equivalent of. It's not even like Fox News. It's like much more extreme. It's a far right channel, and it's kind of like, yeah, that kind of crap that you get. Yeah, I can't remember the name, but that's it. So it's a far right channel. So yeah, I've never been approached by any of these guys though. I would love to go and cook them on their channels. Yeah, I mean, Macy just said, shout out to Macy. Thank you very much for $2. She said, I think we're headed to feudalism in the US. Yeah, I think something like that. Something like that. I think there's definitely a plan. I don't know what the end goal is, because the US is clearly, I don't know if they're planning on doing some kind of global world war, because they're clearly not planning to maintain any kind of economic longevity. Daily Wire, thank you very much, King Henry. Shout out to you. Yeah, I don't think they're, I don't think they're planning any longevity when it comes to their economic plan. Everything they're doing will have a long-term destructive effect. And to be honest with you, I think the collapse of the US, and this is going to sound very dramatic, but the collapse of the US is going to be intrinsically linked, and it's going to be very sudden, and I think quite soon, because of the AI bubble that the US economy has now become incredibly reliant on. A lot of the wealth that's tied up in the US stock market is linked to these fake AI valuations, like SpaceX coming out and valuing themselves, I think it was like 2.7 trillion. It's like you've just sent a few rockets up into the sky and they've crashed in the sea. I mean, you could be a moron and believe that, he's doing more than that. It's just like the biggest fugazi, fakest, like there's no value. You don't generate any money. You turn over nothing annually. And, you've got this entire AI market that obviously Elon Musk is the apex of theft and deceit. But a lot of these AI companies are kind of doing a lot of similar things where it's kind of like, okay, where's the value in this? We understand the technology, but you haven't showed us how, other than people paying subscriptions for it, you still haven't showed us how you're going to turn over value with these technologies. And I think that the belligerence that the US is showing towards other parts of the world where they should be building diplomacy is going to shoot them in the foot. It's going to shoot them in the foot. I think they're going to struggle keeping Africa colonized and keeping Africa kind of like under the thumb. And I know that's hard for people to see with the current run of some of the idiot leaders we have, but I think that we might see the Sahelian states speed run, liberation and progressive mindset across Africa. And once Africa closes its doors and its mineral wealth to the West, it's going to be a hard time. So I don't know what the US looks like at the end of that, is the long and short of what that entire diatribe was. I don't know what the end goal is, but nothing that the US is doing at the moment looks like they're building for longevity. Everything looks like a short-term smash and grab for a collapsing state. And it's truly quite worrying, actually. Obviously, when I say worrying, I mean worrying for my black brothers and sisters that I couldn't care less about the actual nation. I think it's the most evil nation on the planet.
Watched the video, I just Googled her comments and I was like, because they wanted someone to defend her. And I was like, I actually don't agree with her. So there's no point me coming on. But today I actually watched the clip and my God, she's basically making a joke. Like, obviously the point she is making is.
But what is she's obviously making a joke, and they like to, conservatives like to do this, take a joke and to make it sound like it's the most serious statement in the world and then respond in a way that is completely out of tandem. I spoke about this when, we were doing the whole, taking everything that Lupita Nyong'o has said since the Odyssey has been announced, and every time she says something, Metatron the idiot will clip it and make it sound like she said something heinous. She'll be like, oh, and they did the same thing to Meghan Markle as well. They do it, when they get a hard on for taking someone down, this is the kind of things they do. So she can wake up and be like, oh yeah, I woke up and I had I think I preferred sourdough to wholemeal. Oh, the undertones of this statement is horrible. Wholemeal bread is grown in England, but she knows that the flour from sourdough comes from Italy, so she's saying foreigners are better. Like, that's the kind of stupidity that they kind of like operate on. And to say that you disagreed with her in the first place, I'm just interested to hear what your perspective is, because all she said was that English is incredibly evil nation. I think she said the most evil nation in history. Like, that's very subjective, but it's also subjectively supported with data, like not hard to support. But many people are influenced by the educational systems that they've been educated in and are not able to extract themselves and look at situations objectively and say, okay, let's compare numbers. Let's compare deeds. Let me forget the fact that I'm British and forget the fact that they're called the Allies and the Allies were the good guys. And let me just actually take some time to be empathetic about what it might have felt like to be, you know, a subject of this empire, what it might have felt like to be, I don't know, a slave, what it might have felt like to be, you know, the member of this ethnic group that was completely wiped from existence. And then, you know, because I'm frankly sick and tired of empathizing with one. It's like the entire world is only able to empathize with one ethnic group, and that's the ethnic group that controls all of the media and will accuse you of being anti something if you decide to withhold your, you know, withhold your empathy for them. Yeah, but there are other ethnic groups that I empathize with more, and I would say every other ethnic group on the planet. You know, and I'm sick and tired of everyone with, you know, whole, you know, only being able to empathize with one ethnic group. Like that's the only tragedy that's happened in human history. And a lot of this is linked to the fact that that ethnic group wants to hold a moral high ground. And one of the things that it's beneficial for them to defend is the British Empire. It's beneficial for people to have that view of the British Empire because then it makes what happened to them seem like this really unique thing when it wasn't. It was never unique. Okay.
Is that the British Empire was largely evil, and it was. And you have British right-wingers trying to downplay the atrocities of the British Empire when it was terrible. We did awful things. We committed genocide. We committed famine. In fact, ironically, that clip of the person on Talk TV who called her a cretin said that, you know, Stalin killed more people. Stalin killed all these people in the Soviet Union. Chairman Mao killed all those people. But the graphic you showed, that, you know, explained how Britain killed more people than them combined. So we still killed more people. But
and that's funny. He's debunked by his own source, which is hilarious. He's got on there to rant about how wrong she is, and his own source says, "Well, she's correct actually." And this is how lazy, far right, you know, complainers, grifters, and you know, clickbait seekers are. They can't even be bothered to find a source that is, you know, in line with them because they're unable to, because they're peddling a lie. They just hope that if they shout loud enough, the point that they're making, which is normally to gaslight objective people, they hope that it's enough. That's kind of how they do.
Watching the video, it's clear that it was kind of an offhand comment. She was making a joke, and actually she spoke about this point for like 30 seconds. It wasn't that she had a whole segment about the British Empire and how backward every British person was. She was talking about a TV character in which, as you explained in the podcast, she's British, and the director or producer wants to be really nice. And she was like, well, actually, British people are kind of evil. Let's make her a bit of a...
Yeah, and British people suck, and they're not nice. So what's the point in making like? Let's just be honest. You know, if you wanna, you know, she played a British person. Not only that, a Londoner, and as much as I would say loved London, I don't love London anymore. I think I've got no love lost for London now. But you know, I've grown up loving where I grew up. I love London. I hate the fact that England's such a sucky country at the moment. It actually burns me because I would love to love this nation as I have grown up. But the point being, they suck. Yeah, even when I love this nation, I know that British people suck. Londoners, people are rude. Do you understand what I mean? Like you go to anywhere else in the world and people are nicer. I think the only thing British people are actually good at and really nice at is queuing. We queue like professionals. We are very when it comes to kind of like etiquette, Britain is a nation that's full of etiquette. Okay, we have, you know, we're sticklers for manners in certain areas. You know, there's certain things we don't do. We don't like carrying ourselves in a certain way. So Britain does have this kind of like these underlying behaviors, but when it comes to it, they're a miserable, sulky, sucky people. There's nothing wrong. And historically, the British Empire is heinously evil, like cartoonishly evil, like so evil it's impossible to document all the evil things they did. And when you start relaying how evil they were, people will just look at you like, no, you made that up. You know, when you go to, you know, the Caribbean, where slave owners would, you know, boil slaves in a vat of sugar, you know, a burning vat of sugar, boil them alive. We've got documents proving that this happened. It was a practice. It was a punishment for rebellious slaves. Like that's cartoonishly evil, like to the point where I would say that story and I would would venture to guess that about 50% of you don't believe that that happened. You know, that's how cartoonishly evil the British were, to the point where even repeating what they did is, you know, you have to censor what you say in terms of what they did, you know, for sake of monetization on the channel. That's how bad it is, you know. So
bitch. Like it was an offhanded comment, and I just think once again the right wing are having a huge meltdown. I mean, why is Talk TV, GB News talking about this when she just did it on a random podcast? Like, why are they bringing this up? It's not important.
because they need something to complain about. White men always need to feel like someone is persecuting them. And because they lack persecution, because they lack trial, they lack tribulation, they lack obstacles. These are things that we experience on a daily basis. These are real tangible things for them. They live literally a frictionless life. And when you live a frictionless life and you're a failure, yeah, or your life is nothing exceptional, you need someone to blame for that. And the easiest thing to do is to manufacture friction. Oh, I'm so offended. Oh, they're getting away with it again. Oh, I'm so offended by her comments. No one was offended by her comments. There was nothing to be offended about. No one was mentioned. No group was targeted. It was literally an accurate, if not amusing, retelling of history. Oh, I'm so offended. I'm so offended. Oh, this is a white man. Look what we're going through again. White men fight back. White men fight back. The persecution will not topple us. We will triumph over the matrix. Mate, you have no obstacles. You have no obstacles. You live the most easy life in the world. Yeah, you run and you rule everything. And the people that run and rule everything want people like you to have all of the wealth, want people like you to have all of the jobs. There's literally nothing standing in your path, and you still can't manage to drum up some kind of success from your miserable existence. So you need Jamila Jamil to be your enemy for a day. Pathetic, honestly.
But of course, it's more cultural stuff. So I just think, once again, I've said this point so many times, that everything the right wing accuses the left of is exactly what the right wing is. It's pure projection. It's fragile. It's being a crybaby, being a snowflake. She made a little joke, and that was it. I'm not offended. I just think if you're someone who actually has things that really matter to you, you shouldn't give it a second thought.
She looks a bit uncomfortable, doesn't she? Does she agree? She got a little bit of right in her. You got a little bit of right in your love. You're a bit uncomfortable there. I feel like you were offended. Let's see what this lady has to say. I think she needs a job on Talk TV. What you got to say here, love?
I don't really think I've got much more to add there. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And looking at the comments, I think a lot of people also feel very similarly. I think Jamila Jamil is, well, absolutely fab, to be completely honest with you. She's stunning, gorgeous.
I think thinks this lady here lacks conviction. I'm not gonna lie to you. She's kind of saying the opposite. Which she's like, I kind of understand. At the start, she was like, I kind of understand why people would be offended, because we're not all English people, aren't you? And now she's kind of U-turned because you can see the comment feed. Maybe I'm being harsh. Don't judge me.
Hilarious, and also has really great politics, and is just so intelligent.
Yeah.
Like, anytime I ever listen to anything that she ever says, I'm just like, wow, I want to be you when I grow up.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, before I watched that clip and I just saw what was reported about her, right, I was ready to criticize her, because ultimately we know the issue isn't with people, it's with systems, it's with imperialism. Like, British people are not inherently evil. We're no more evil than anyone else. Ultimately, human beings have the capacity to be good and bad.
And this is one of the major things. I'm glad I'm going to finish up on this topic, or on this point, but this is one of the major things. When you, God, the sunlight on me is, sorry. How annoying was that, man? Sorry, guys. Okay. Shh. Sheesh.
Wow. Yeah, that's cooking me, man. Is my mic still working? Can you still hear me? Yeah, I think you can. I don't know what's done with my thing. But anyway, yeah, the point I was going to make, and I think we'll finish up on this, I've got to go to another call, is that you have to be really careful when you're going to respond to something based on how it's been reported. Always check the source, always check what was originally said and originally stated, because one thing you'll note is that the mainstream media can't be trusted. They will twist things and make it sound like someone said something totally heinous on what they've said. How's my voice gone? You can't hear me. Can you not hear me? Voice effect. Okay. How's that? I don't know what I pressed there, but has it gone? Oh wait.
There you go. Okay, no, that's it. That's it. Was it doing the deep? Was it doing the deep voice of the Thanos voice? One thing. That's hilarious. Yeah. So the point I was making was that it's gone now, right? Tell me it's gone. Fixed. Okay, cool. Yeah. The point I was making was that they will twist it and they'll make it seem like this is what happened, and you'll be so convinced, you'll be ready to go, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And then you watch it back and you're like, wow, these people just straight up lied. Yeah, and the mainstream media will do that. This is not just the far right. Literally, the mainstream media will 100% twist narratives. So it's really important to go back to source. But anyway, we're gonna call it a day there because I've got a 7 o'clock, so I'll be outie. Thank you for joining me, guys. It's been blessing seeing all of you, even if it's briefly, and I'll let you know if I'm doing another live stream this evening. But if I do, it might just appear and start. I'm just warning you in advance. But thank you for joining me, guys. It's been an absolute blessing. Shout out to those of you who made donations, and Members Academy, I will see you in the offing. Peace.